Romania was my first tour that I ran with Guided By, and it's been a pleasure to run it a couple years now. It is way too tempting to go through day by day, but I know it's getting kind of into y'all's day, so I'll try to keep it super short. So instead of going through everything, I'm just going to add a little note on a couple of the things that I changed this year as I kind of stream on through, because it was a lot of fun. So the group this year, this small group thing is just such a delight, especially when you get off the beaten track a little bit, because Romania, I think, those of you who stuck around after David's call are probably going, Romania? What the is in Romania? And that's what most people ask me. But once you get out there, you realize there's more there than one could expect. And then when you have a small group like we do with Guided By, you just go into a restaurant and you're just people in the town there, and they're very eager to welcome you. So the small group is pretty handy. So jumping into it. We have our small groups there. One change just in Bucharest we did is a new restaurant, which just feels like a family-owned place. It's those little ones there on the left. And then a new hotel. In Romania, I think a lot of people think of Eastern Europe as just Soviet, communist, very heavy and concrete and gray and awful. But Bucharest was known as the Paris of the East for a long time. The hotel we stay in was built in the late 1800s. It's Baroque, basically. You can just a snapshot on the right that I took there, which wasn't even to represent the beauty of the hotel. It was just sending a picture of our meeting place to one of the tour members. So that was just an accidental photo. It just happened to be the only one I took. But that hotel, just to give you a sense of it, the king stayed there after the fall of communism. It's been there. It's hosted nobles all the way through that Belle Epoque era, 1870 to World War I, 1914, that they consider such a great time in European history. And then during communism, they built a brand new hotel for the press to be there, and they filled it with listening devices. So occasionally people would want to stay in this one where they weren't being listened to. And when they would give an interview, some guy would sit down on the couch next to you with his microphone in a big suitcase while they listened to your interview, which cracks me up. And it just adds, it reminds me of the way that history is constantly moving. And you really get a sense of that in Romania, because they have their ancient history. They love ancient Rome. My Italy connection there. They love Trajan and the Dacians and everything. The figures on the Arch of Constantine right outside the Colosseum in Rome are Romanians. They're Dacians. They love all that ancient stuff, but they have such vital history going all the way through. And staying in that hotel just feels like that, because it's also present today. We meet there. We have a big dinner. Then we do a little kind of walking tour through the old town. And the old town is so much fun because it's centuries lumped all together, combined with present day partying. All these, kids go out there to party a little, so if you want to shake your booty, you can do that too. But we were going through this night, and I just picked one extra photo from here because we were walking through. We looked at a couple of these amazing palaces, these banks, all these incredible museums, all this great stuff. And then we were walking up, and I just heard this violin just drifting down the sepia-lit street. And I if you've gone on tour with me, I'm a big fan of street musicians. I love the way they show up and they bring their craft to just make your evening walking down a street, turn it from just being walking on a pretty street to this like beautiful experience in music. So I always pay attention to him, and this violinist was so good. And so as we were walking up to him, I clapped for him, and he appreciated the attention for what he'd done. And he asked me what I wanted him to play next. And I was considering a couple options. I was going to try to, intimidate him with some Brahms or something. And then he saw Amalia, who is my Romanian partner who does this tour with me. And seeing a pretty lady, he immediately knew exactly what he wanted to do. So he sat her down right there next to him on the bench and played the Romeo and Juliet overture, Tchaikovsky, which you've heard it in a million commercials and movies and things. But when you're sitting on that street with a monastery just out of sight on the left there from the late 1300s. It's basically a caravanserai. The palace down on the end there, the Czech palace. You're just in this amazing place, and you're listening to Tchaikovsky, and you're hearing this guy play for you. And he was so happy that we were enjoying his music. Now, I see a lot of buskers in some areas, and they're just tired, they're giving it a go. But this guy was just so happy to have us enjoy it. And the last note, because I'm ambitious, is if you want to understand Europe today, one of the questions, one of the many of them, is the Roma. We know them as the gypsies. And people sometimes go, oh, Romanians, they're the gypsies, right? It is so much more nuanced than that. It is an incredibly nuanced topic. I'm not going to get into it now because we will talk for an hour and a half while I start that. But this dude's Roma, and he's there, and he's playing music, and it was fantastic. So to understand that situation, come to Romania, realize that, a quick note of warning, if you talk to Romanians, do not tell them that they are the Roma, because it's a complex issue. But I just loved that moment. It was completely spontaneous. You can't script for that kind of thing. But when you're in places off the beaten track a little bit, like these guided by tours go, they are so sometimes happy to see visitors, or it's just kind of novel still. So they just are happy to interact with you, and you can just suddenly have these great moments, really anywhere, but especially there. From Bucharest, we go through a couple more amazing places, but again, I'm not going to do the day by day because I'll keep you here for 6 hours. But from there, we do go to Sighișoara, and Sighișoara, that's one of the changes this year, is I cut a day off of Sighișoara. And now I was worried about doing that because I thought I might have to lose something, but I didn't. We can still do everything. We have an amazing walking tour with a truly remarkable local expert that will help you really understand really the history of the 20th century in Europe in a new way, from a new perspective. And then we go to this farm to table place where Oana there on the left made us this amazing apricot cake. She made a chicken recipe that we asked her where she got the recipe. And she said, I made it up as I went along today. It just seemed like a good idea. And it was delicious. Just some of the people you meet in this amazing farm to table restaurant where everything is grown within a few kilometers of there. It's just, Romania is a very surprising place. And I'll be honest, I added this slide while David was talking because he put a cat in. So darn it, I want a cat too, because Romania has the best street. Okay, I don't want to say the best because I'm going to get in a fight with the Italians, and nobody wants to get in a fight with the Italiani. But I got to say, Romania's cats are just fantastic. They tend to be neighborhood cats. Nobody owns them. They just show up and everybody feeds them and takes care of them. And they will kind of hop in your lap and love on you, and then they just go on their way. So I love Romanian cats. What else did I put next? Then we went on to Birtan. I obviously stole this photo from someone on TripAdvisor, but this is another change this year that I made. It's a little up in the air to see if we do it again next year. But Birtan is one of these Saxon villages, because basically after the Mongols came through and killed an awful lot of people, you had the Holy Roman Empire over here, that's Germany's, and you had the Ottomans down here, it's kind of Turkey, and they're looking at each other and they don't like the way the other one looks. So they invited a whole bunch of Germans to fill in the middle there. Saxons. They weren't yet Germans. They had a few more centuries to go. So this is basically, say, 1400s. And they sent them out there, and they made a bunch of these really German-type towns. They're from all northern France, Alsace, Lorraine, Luxembourg, what's modern Belgium. And they went out there. This Birtan was one of them. It is confined by those hills, so it never grew very big. So it didn't grow into a modern city. It stayed a village. But it has this remarkable church in there. And then a note also, the hillsides have lines on them because they've been growing wine there since well before history. The Romanians will tell you they taught the Romans how to make wine. I'm not going to wage into that problem either. That's even worse than the cats. But they've been making wine there for a couple thousand years. So we go into Birtan. It's this amazing fortified church, because not only is the church the center of your faith, it's also the center of your community, your economy. But when you're living in an age where empires tend to show up with armies, you need fortifications. So they build walls around them. And as we move around Romania, we see three distinct styles of this. But these Saxon ones are one of them. But this one, I just loved it because we go in there, and this stone pulpit on the right there, last year it turned 500. That was sculpted in 1523, and it's just been hosting, well, faith and survival ever since. The church itself is just a remarkable experience, a fun place to walk around. This is a couple of my tour members there on the left. But on the right, check that thing out on the right, that door. So the entire fortified church is a refuge in times of war. The church itself is the inner sort of keep of that. Within the church itself, just off the altar, this is the door to the sacristy. The last safe place. And that door is officially the most complicated door and locking mechanism in the world. It was made, the church was made basically 1480 to about 1425 or so. That lock, handmade by blacksmiths in 1515, locks the door in 19 places. And the lock itself, handmade by a team of blacksmiths, is one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen. And you would never think that it was just in some itty bitty village in some side alley in Romania. And I'm not the only one who thought it was nifty. They actually took it out of Beertown once. They took it in 1889 to Paris for the World's Fair. That was the World's Fair that debuted the Eiffel Tower. It was kind of a big deal. They took it all the way out for people to look at it and go, that's amazing artistry. So Romania, I just picked a couple of things because out of the many it could. It's a very surprising place, which granted isn't hard when no one knows anything about it beyond vampires, which is a whole different thing. Luckily, we did one on that, so vampires, there's more to that too. But then part of the reason I like this season in particular is it's festival season. There's so much going on. The Romanians love all sorts of festivals. So this one was in Sighișoara. It was different folk music from different regions. And Romania is incredibly culturally diverse. It has all these different groups and accents and traditions, and they each have their hand embroidered clothing and their different dances. And the kids learn these things still. We have this idea that nobody learns their culture anymore, but they do in Romania. They have a lot of pride for these areas. So they have this big festival because under communism, they tried to stamp that out, but it doesn't work because people have been trying to stamp out the Romanian spirit for 2,000 years and it never works. You can't. It's going to survive until the sun explodes. So now they get together and all these, the town is just full of nervous, proud, flirting, awkward, blushing, zit-covered teenagers. And it's about the most precious thing I've ever seen. So that was one thing I enjoyed too. And then the other festival that we just happened to run into was a pottery festival in Sibiu, which is one of my favorite cities in all of the world, I would say. Sibiu is one of the most just gems just out there waiting for anybody who goes to it. So this pottery festival is remarkable. All the tents all the way around there filling the main square, the Piazza Mare of Sibiu. Each one is a family basically, and they make whatever they make by hand and they bring them here during this weekend and they sell them and you can see where it's from. I had just moved into a new apartment and I shipped a big box of pottery, of bowls and plates and a vase and some cooking pots and all sorts of stuff. I would show them to you, but a couple of them are probably Christmas presents for my family, so I'm not going to preview those. But it was a fantastic chance just to see it because it's easy to think we live in just a mass-produced, anonymous factory off a boat type of world, but here you're surrounded by this entire square full of handmade, traditional, family-based pottery. And they're super affordable because it's not just like some, chic thing just to hang on your wall. You're meant to use them. I put them in the dishwasher. My dishwasher has 3 of them in there right now because I drink a lot of tea. So the festivals and the chance to kind of see that because there's just so many stories in Romania to be had. The other big change I made this year was adding a new city. That day that I took off of Sighișoara, I added in Cluj-Napoca. Oh, I added these during David's talk too. I can't help it. This is the salt mine in Turda. It's just so blooming beautiful. I can't help it. Plus, you get down in there. It's there's 13 stories underground for this first one, and then you go another 13 stories by elevator down, and you can get the one on the right where you can go paddle a boat down underground. It's just a phenomenal thing. That's not new this year. You got to go there if you go to Romania. I just put them in because I just like looking at the salt mine. Right, Cluj. So the thing about Cluj is it's a university town, so it has that bubbling vibrance. It's a great place to just walk around, get something to eat. It's that late summer air that's still lovely and warm. I took almost no pictures because I was just so busy being there and enjoying it and giving the orientation walk and then wandering around. It was basically until it was dinner time that I remembered, oh, I should be documenting this. So as we walked around looking for dinner, there's plenty of these places. I just happened to be on the street. Outdoor seating, that European thing, you're on the cobblestones, you're enjoying the air, the lights, people walking by, you're hearing different languages. Italians love Romania. Those two countries have a pretty bone deep link there. Europeans, you don't hear a ton of Americans still because they don't know anything's there, so they don't tend to go. This was in the center square there. I'll come back to it in a minute, but just the way they enjoy beauty. I'll come back to that in a moment, though. But this was where we ended up eating. So if sometimes you start thinking, oh, Romania is probably all, I don't know what the prejudices would be, but that could be in Portland or I don't know where else. Brooklyn, I don't know. It was just a lovely place to eat, delicious food. This entire restaurant was vegetarian. It's not all vegetarian, just to further nuance the idea that it's all, I don't know, pork. But this was the other thing I loved. In the orientation walk, you pop into a couple churches, and I've heard people kind of lovingly deride tours as ABC tours, right? Another bloomin' church. But when you go to these places that have been on the threshold of so much history, so many faiths, you get an amazing variety. To me, the Catholic and the Protestant churches, we know historically the Catholic were really fancy, and then the Protestant ones got really pretty austere, and now they've kind of come sort of back towards the middle together. Go to an Orthodox one, it's a whole different experience. This one is another different experience of an Orthodox one. It's these amazing mosaics, and to really just flesh out your understanding of what is the history of Christianity in Europe, you got to go to this variety. It just informs all of it. Every time I go into a Catholic church or a Protestant church, I'm more informed by having been in a Romanian Orthodox, and now this one too, because on the left is just the main nave there. I want to tell you all about the architecture, but I'm keeping it short. So the altar is behind there, behind that iconostasis, so you can't see it. It shares kind of in common with Judaism and Islam, the other kind of Orthodox old, people of Abraham, people of the flame. But on the right there is a mosaic that's from the harrowing of hell. It's one of those biblical stories I'd never heard growing up in the church, where after the crucifixion, Jesus went down to hell and saved some souls. So you're in this church with all this history, and there's Jesus pulling people out of the mouth of a big hell beast. And it's just like, I don't know, if you look in this kind of variety of things like Romania has, you're less likely to go to another bloody church. It's like there's so many stories, so much variety, so much unexpected. I love getting off the beaten path. I love taking my groups to very familiar places. I mourned for Paris while I was during lockdown. I craved that city. But yeah, you can find surprises there too, but it's been on TV a lot. But these ones, when you don't know what's out there, you get to just walk in and be amazed. I loved it, and then when I took the group in there, they were always also just kind of amazed at that imagery, because you think what churches look like. They all look the same, right? Not in Romania. Then this one, I had to put this in one last time. That fountain on the left there was the ones I showed earlier. They play music from a couple Romanian composers, and there's that big church there in the center. It's beautiful. And I just put that in because on the right, that's us leaving in the morning. That's out the window of my hotel room. That's our van that we're getting in. That's two of our tour members down there. That's Ricardo and Fred waiting to jump in the van, and I need to grab my suitcase and get down there too. And look, you can see where our hotel is. We're right in the center of this amazing city, because there isn't that much tourism there. And because we're a small group, it's such a remarkable opportunity to get to travel like this. So thank you, Reiner, for founding the feast. Anyway, the main thing I wanted to talk about is not even this yet. That's the other one. On the way up to the north of the country, we stopped off at Lake Kolibița, which is just this little bit of just amazing, I don't know, does it look a little bit Tyrolean? Just the mountains and the lake, and it's just gorgeous. We were sitting there eating lunch, and somebody said, I feel like we're eating lunch in a postcard. And they didn't put it in the review, so I can't put it on the website because I can't remember who said it. But it's just that sort of place. Now, the main thing I wanted to go over, quick as can be. The north of the country is so beautiful. The landscape up there is just phenomenal. It takes a little bit of time to get there because the Romanians never built good roads going north, because they knew their ancestral enemy was to the north of them in the form of Russia. They always knew that you don't build logistical aid for the Russian army. So they never built roads north-south. So if you get up there, you get on these little winding tracks, you're behind a horse cart, you go through these beautiful villages, through gorgeous mountains, and you get up to just phenomenal countryside. And we picked a new hotel this year. this one, we're pulling up to it, and you get this modern take on a Romanian style of window like that in building. It was just such a pleasure to get out there. In this place, it kind of represented that Romanian spirit, because you got dogs. I don't want you to think it's only cats. This savage, vicious little guard dog here, with the snaggly teeth, and you just pet her and she just would love you all day. And the German woodpile there on the side too. But they had badminton and volleyballs and soccer balls and hammocks, and there's a jacuzzi, and there was just so much out there in this big, beautiful yard. This was breakfast, where they fresh made those loaves of bread there on the left. It's this really kind of like sweet egg bread. There's fresh made croissants on the upper right. Those did not come wrapped in plastic. They came out of an oven. The cheese in the back left there, you'll have cow, sheep, goat cheeses, all from nearby. You get the Turkish influence, so you always get the cucumber and tomato and peppers and hummus and eggplant spread and olives. And then just the cuts of meat. These amazing meats were phenomenal. It was breakfast. And then dinner also, I got too busy eating, so this was just kind of the setup. These amazing homemade biscuits and the wine. Oh my God, the Romanian wine is so good. I had a professional, runs a winery on last year's tour, and she was just flabbergasted by how good Romanian wine is. She says, how come we never hear about this? And I say, because Romania has no prestige, because people think it's just communism and cement. So it's not. So feel free to come and enjoy the lack of everyone else's knowing what's out there. So beautiful meals. Now, from this home base, we go and see some cool stuff up in there. These painted churches. You're probably familiar with the idea that Dark Ages art, basically medieval art, was not for beauty. It was to instruct the faithful what to do. And they put it on paintings. In Romania, they put it on the whole church. And there's another fortification wall around that, but the entire church is covered with all of these lessons. The tree of Jesse is on the north wall, and all these lessons and how to be a monk. And it's just a phenomenal experience to be there and to see the history of these places, and then go inside and see a whole different interpretation, iteration, manifestation of what it means to be in a house of Christian worship. It's really a phenomenal experience. I'm going to stop there, otherwise it'll be 2 more hours. So we go to there, and then right by there, up in the north in Marginia, they have this local pottery, this black pottery. It's specific to that area. They were at the festival in Sibiu also, but when we go there, we'll go to a place that makes it and shows it. And this year, I was talking to the guy. I said, "Do you want to do a little demo for us?" He's like, "Yeah, sure. You can come in the workshop." And I was expecting the kind of tourist thing where they give a little presentation and it has the kind of canned jokes that they give, and it was not. He just came in and just did some work while we were there. It was the most authentic and amazing thing. He made those 4 vases. He made 6 of them in the minutes that we were just sitting there watching this dude. And to watch him do this craft, his family's been doing for generations in a style that's specific to that area. And they were almost identical. And it was such a good counter to that sort of jaded thing where you see something and it's like, too good, and you go, is this real, or did this get made in a factory and you can't? It's like, no, those were all made by hand because we watched his hands make them. And I just love that it was not polished. He just was working. He was just doing his craft, and we got to be there and be part of it. It was a great opportunity. Then we went and had dinner off his things. That's the dog again, because why not? The Romanians have a tradition of very simple pet names, so this is Dog. You can come see Dog. Then the other thing, someone up there. I was talking to the guy who runs our hotel and said, "Hey, do you know anybody with some horses and a cart?" He said, "Yeah, I'll call my buddy." So this is his buddy from down the street. He brought a couple of enormous horses. They're very young. He brings a cart that they use to do work. You see on the road, in among the Teslas and the Mercedes and all the, the Bentleys, all the fancy cars, you'll see some guy going about his business in a horse cart, because that's good enough for us. This is the way we've been doing it for centuries. This is the way we do it. We'll put modern tires on it. Why not? But they still use them. So we got this one. A couple of my more intrepid tour members and we jumped in this thing and we start rolling down the street. And we're talking to the guy, and he says, yeah, this is the first time I've hooked him up to a wagon and taken him out. So that was their orientation, but it worked great. And this kind of experience is they're rocking down the street. Their sleigh bells are ringing. I know it wasn't Christmas yet. It's Christmas now, and those sleigh bells were ringing. And you go through town, and you see people just talking to their neighbors, and they're hanging out in this little village, and you wave to them or smile at them, and they all wave back, and they're happy to be there. And it was just such a, I don't even know what authentic means anymore in the case of travel, but it was that. That's definitely an iteration of it. It was just a fun thing to do. And when you're in Romania, you can just invite the guys, and you can bring a beer with you too, because I'm not driving the horses. So that was just a great experience. Get on back. And they said, for dinner the next night, do you want to just do it down here again? I said, you have this amazing yard out there. Can we have it outside? And he said, yeah, sure. So they fired up the big fire pit out there, and they gave us this enormous barbecue. I kept telling them, we don't eat that much. And they cooked so much food for us, because that's just hospitality. As the sun went down in the warm air, the wine is flowing. It was just perfect. It was so gorgeous. Forested hills all around. You could still hear the horses down the street. And then the sun went down, and you gather around the fire pit, and check your day's photos or tell stories, sing a song, do whatever you want. It was just such a great opportunity to enjoy the north of the country, which does not get many tourists, because it takes a minute to get there, and we'll get you there, and you get a chance to really enjoy a new area. On the way back down, I found another new area. You go through just this pass. It's like, it reminded me of Yosemite. It was just a phenomenal area. It's got a new lake that was formed by an earthquake 100 years ago. Stop and have a big portion of meat. Ponder the natural beauty. Pose like a doofus if you're me, but so it goes. It was just another fun thing. I didn't really take a lot of photos, because I was just busy enjoying the day towards the end of the tour. Ended back in Brasov, and that's the end of the tour. It just is. Romania is such a phenomenal place. It's really, I love it. It's everything. Well, it's everything that I want travel to be. It's culture, it's exposure, it's safety. It's incredibly safe. There is basically no crime. It's remarkably safe. I take people to tourist places with pickpockets, and they think the world's like that, but that's because there's tourists there. There's none of that in Romania. Wrapping up, there's that Romania one is listed for next year. The Benelux too. Oh, it's so good. If you got another hour, let's do one more hour. We'll talk about Benelux. Christmas markets is already sold out for next year, but it will be on again for 2026. And since you made it this long, I'm 2 minutes over my half hour, but you made it this long. Sneak peek. It's not listed yet. Still, we're ironing out the details, but we have our hotel reservations for a new tour starting February 2026. Is anybody want to go to Cuba? It's about to get harder for Americans to get there. So I've got 2 years worth of reservations, which they can't cancel ostensibly because they're already on the books. So we're going to get a chance to go to Cuba I'm partnering with a friend of mine for decades who is the utmost Cuba expert. So that's going to be another phenomenal one. If you're interested in that, shoot me an email. If you're interested in any of these, shoot me an email. All these tours, you watch these guided by things, you're going to get exposed to a lot of great tours. So what a beautiful problem to have too many good options. So there you go.